Hello everyone, my name is Kushal Khan and this is my presentation for GEK 1520 Understanding the Universe. Today my topic will be on Mars 1. This is the brief outline of my presentation. I will first talk about the origins of the source that I found and then give a brief background of the context, which is basically about Mars in general. I believe that by recapping what we have learned about Mars in the lecture, it will actually help us to better understand Mars 1's mission. I will then try my best to give the gist of Mars 1's mission and some of the key important ideas that we should remember. Finally, I will talk about the different impacts this mission to Mars has in the world in general, to society, and finally on an individual ground, which actually covers my own personal opinion as well. Okay, so I found this article when I was looking through CNN Astronomy News this year. As you can see that I found it February 18th. And previously in lecture, it was actually mentioned that there was a mission that would send people to Mars. And I thought that this was quite interesting, and so was the title because of the quote. And so I decided to investigate more about it. So it's basically an article that covered the voices of the participants for Mars 1. And even though the mission had already started way back in 2011, this year actually marks the end of the selection process and the start of the training process, so we can gain more personal insight on this mission. I also coupled my findings with two more other articles from the online astronomy magazine, which talks about the possible traces of water on Mars, which actually helps us to give more contextualization to the whole issue. Okay, so let's have a brief recap of what we learned about Mars in lecture. So as we know, the presence of the polar caps on Mars actually may contain some water ice, and this also results in the planet having seasons which is actually similar to Earth. NASA's followed the water program, and the findings of Gales have also shown the possibility of water that might have existed on Mars way before, and these are the water was actually the one that caused these markings on Mars's surface. However, due to the solar winds which resulted in the thinning of Mars's atmosphere, this caused all the water to eventually disappear as well because the atmosphere has thinned. And so the most important thing you have to remember from all this is that the possibility of Mars having water and the possibility of bringing water back to Mars is something that Mars wants to explore, as because water is a signal of life. And yeah, so bearing these facts in mind will actually help us understand more about what Mars 1 intends to do, which I will explain later. Okay, so now let's talk about Mars 1's mission. Mars 1 is actually a privately funded space mission that intends to send 100 human beings on a one-way trip to Mars by the late 2020s. Founded in 2011 and is led by a Dutch entrepreneur by the name of Bas Lansdorp, and this mission is known to cost $6 billion, which is actually not a small sum of money at all. Here's the brief timeline of events that Mars 1 has come up with. So fast forwarding to this year, 50 men and 50 women have already been selected for the mission, and the training proper actually starts this year. 5 years from now, a communication satellite will be launched into Mars stationary orbit, enabling 24/7 communication between Earth and Mars. In 2022, a rover that will choose the best location settlement will be launched, and it is known that an ideal location for the settlement is far enough north for the soil to contain enough water, equatorial enough for the maximum solar power, and flat enough to facilitate construction of the settlement. By 2024, a second rover, 2 living units, 2 life support systems, and a supply unit will be sent to Mars. The rovers will then take a year or so to set up the outpost for the humans, and in the following year, the first group of 4 humans will then be sent to Mars. Since it would take around 7 months to reach Mars, according to the site, Mars 1 site, they will reach by probably the following year, and therefore, if all else goes well, Mars 1 actually plans to send more people there every year or so. Okay, so these images are actually gotten from the Mars 1 site, and these are probably the predicted images of how the settlement will look like. This is on Mars, and this is the outpost that the humans will be living in, which is underground Mars to escape the radiation. Okay, so if we still recall the brief recap of Mars, basically what Mars 1 aims to do is most probably is to turn Mars into a more livable habitat for mankind, and this will actually start by releasing greenhouse gases into Mars' atmosphere. And in about a few decades or so, it is hoped that with the thickening of atmosphere, this will actually bring back water, which will flood Mars surface once again. And so as water, a signal of life, we actually hope that this will actually revive the life on Mars, and we might even start coexisting with Martian organisms and even start to grow our own food there. Okay, so looking back to the article, with the selection process done and the participants starting formal training, this actually gets one thinking about the ethics involved in the whole process, which is what I will cover lastly in the impacts. Okay, so should this mission succeed, this of course will be a huge breakthrough for mankind, as you no longer have to worry about the Earth exhausting its resources or the Earth running out of space, because we always have this alternative of living on Mars. However, the failure of it might mean a total waste of this $6 billion worth of research and resources. And here actually, more importantly, the question of ethics come into play, as there are many physiological and psychological risks involved. It has been argued by MIT researchers that the colonists will actually die within 68 days, either from suffocation, starvation, or incineration. Likewise, the Guardian also argues that humans as social beings are unable to bear the isolation and confinement they will have to go through on Mars. What's worse is the lack of mental health services that will not help these astronauts either. Mars One actually faces some religious friction as well, as can be seen in the Islamic world. And the General Authority of Islamic Affairs and Endowment in the United Arab Emirates actually argued that an attempt to dwell on the planet would be so hazardous as to be suicidal and killing oneself, and this is actually not permitted by the laws of Islam. Also, societies might even start viewing such explorations as more important than solving issues on Earth itself, and this is not very good because Earth is actually first and foremost our planet, so we should focus more energy into solving things that we can solve right on Earth first before looking outwards into Mars. Okay, on an individual level, I actually see this issue might even come across as hubris. And according to ex-Canadian astronaut Pitt, she actually believed that we just do not have the sort of technology to send humans to Mars yet, and much less keeping them alive on Mars. Her argument is that it's too early and we are pushing it a bit too far. And personally, I actually believe that this is a little overambitious, as and I actually think that instead of spending such a huge sum of money on a mission that does not guarantee success, I think that the same amount of money can be used to can be channeled to more charitable causes like feeding the hungry or solving issues on Earth. Also, I think more importantly, the issue is about the whole agenda of the entire mission, because radiation being the biggest problem on Mars, so much so that intercourse was strongly discouraged on the mission. I really question what is the true purpose of going Mars if we can't even reproduce to carry on mankind. And this really begs the question of, are we just feeding our pride and greed in wanting to conquer unknown lands just for the sake of it? Okay, so what do you guys think? Are we really ready for this one-way trip to Mars? Are we even making the right decision to send people there? What's more interesting, I find, is that NASA does not approve of this uncertain mission, which is the very reason that it is privately funded. And I read from somewhere that actually NASA just intends to send more unmanned probes by 2030 to Mars. And these are just some of the relevant links that I used to contribute to this presentation. And I think if you want to know more about Mars One, you can actually visit the site itself. Okay, so with this, I've come to the end of the presentation, and I hope that it's been informative, and thank you for your attention, and I hope that you liked it.